How well does the RTX 5070 Ti perform at 1440p resolution in the latest games? Let's find out. To test this, I paired the MSI Gaming Trio OC Plus version of the 5070 Ti with the Ryzen 7 9800X 3D CPU as part of the Be Quiet PC build powered by MSI. And we'll be experiencing the games today on my favorite 1440p monitor. This is 360Hz QD OLED MSI 271QRX. If you are interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can find them on Amazon and the links in the description below. There is no need to spend that much money on Windows 11 Pro when you can get it much cheaper at cdkeyoffer.com. Additionally, use discount code iVadim to get 25% off and bring the total price down to $22. Furthermore, you can find Windows 10 Pro as well as Microsoft Office at much cheaper prices as well. Get yours now at the link in the description below, and don't forget to use discount code iVadim to get 25% off. Let's begin with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We are at 1440p resolution, experimental graphics quality preset. This is the absolute maximum. FOV is at 100. And we are using native anti-aliasing, but we'll take a look at DLSS resolution upscaling later on. This game features the latest version, DLSS 4. Even without DLSS, FPS is quite high. It's not a consistent 90 FPS experience because we are experiencing dips to 80 plus from time to time, but still, as far as 1440p experience goes, this is pretty good. And we are using experimental graphics preset, which is quite intensive. Although I must add that this game is not particularly GPU demanding. We'll take a look at some of the very GPU demanding games later on. But this is still a pleasantly looking game, and it runs really well on pretty much any hardware. You can find a good setting to use and enjoy this beautiful masterpiece. Of course, we can boost our performance by utilizing DLSS upscaling. Let's select DLSS Quality. DLSS 4 looks significantly better than DLSS 3, so using DLSS Quality at 1440p is a no-brainer. It looks just as good as native resolution to my eyes when looking at the 27-inch screen. It looks absolutely beautiful. And the performance we're getting, oh my, I think it is well worth it. Take a look at this, 100 plus FPS. We're not reaching 120, which would be really nice, but still. This is a good, pleasant experience. Our GPU is fully loaded, and the CPU is working quite hard, actually. Take a look at that, 50+% utilization. My. Just for the sake of it, let's try DLSS Balanced mode. I don't particularly enjoy it on the 1440p monitor, but I know that some of you do, so let's give it a go. It's, pretty much more or less the same as quality in terms of performance. We're not actually getting that much more out of the GPU. We're still staying at 100 plus FPS, but reaching 120 in more scenes than previously. The better way to improve performance in this game is actually lowering the graphics quality preset. Don't use experimental, use ultra graphics quality preset, yeah? And let's start with native resolution once more and have a look at this. Oh yes, good FPS right here, 100 plus at native 1440p resolution. Amazing performance, although once again not quite enough for that 120 FPS experience consistently. If you want a consistent 120, then we better use DLSS to achieve it. Let's try DLSS Quality mode. Wow, this is much better. Take a look at that. This is true high refresh rate experience. 160 plus FPS. And the image fluidity feels so nice. Oh my god. This kind of FPS paired with the OLED monitor is the best thing ever, because OLEDs have almost zero motion blur. Yeah, the responsiveness of these monitors is just crazy. That's why I love them. It's not only about great colors and pure black. Yeah, it's also about that motion clarity. Insane. Oh, look at that. 180 FPS right here. Beautiful. Personally, I prefer limiting my FPS to get the smoothest experience possible. Let's cap it at 120. And have a look at this. Absolutely flat frame rate and frame time graphs. That's what I like to see, because the experience is just extremely smooth, because there's no fluctuation in frame rate. The image looks beautiful and it feels so smooth. Another benefit of locking the FPS is in the power consumption. Yeah, because the GPU as well as the CPU don't have to work as hard. Take a look at that. The GPU is below 200 watts right now. The CPU is at 70 plus watts. It's a breeze. I want to see how far can we push this monitor with the 5070 Ti. Will we be able to get close to 360 Hz? Let's select DLSS Balanced mode. Oh, we're getting closer to 200, but still DLSS Balanced doesn't offer as much performance of DLSS Quality. Yeah. We'll have to lower graphics settings. Let's select High Graphics preset. It appears that this is the most we can actually get out of the GPU and the CPU combo, because we are already CPU limited. Take a look at that. The GPU is not fully utilized, sometimes 80% right here. And we're getting above 200 FPS. So that's nice, but is it worth it? Lowering the graphics quality? Personally, I prefer playing on higher graphics quality at 120 FPS. But if you want extremely high frame rate, then it is possible. Take a look at that. 250. Nice. Alan Wake 2 is one of the most graphically demanding games you can play. It features all of the latest NVIDIA features. That's full ray tracing, DLSS 4, multi-frame generation, as well as geometry. Currently we are at native 1440p resolution, no DLSS, no frame generation, absolutely maxed out graphics settings, and the highest ray tracing quality is selected, that's Ultra, which means that path tracing is on, everything is maxed out. And that is why we are experiencing 40 plus FPS in this particular scene. And even indoors it was 30 plus. Let's take a look. Yeah, 36, 35, 34 FPS already. So you can't max out all of the settings in all of the games. If you are going to play something like Alan Wake 2, which is extremely GPU demanding, then you will have to lower some settings and use DLSS. Otherwise, in the worst case scenarios, you will have to endure 20 plus FPS. Right, this is a cinematic experience at its best. Take a look at that, 21 FPS. This is even fewer frames than in the movies. Let's see what happens if we use DLSS Quality mode. This is actually not bad. Take a look at that. 60-ish FPS indoors. 57 was the lowest number I've seen so far. 56. Yeah, it's pretty good. The game looks beautiful. The reflections, the lighting, so good. But again, the problem is the forest area. And you will have to spend a significant amount of time throughout the game in this area, so you can't really ignore the performance in this particular level. Yeah, it's not the case where it's just like a short, brief moment that you'll have to endure. No, you'll have to walk around this forest, explore it, and doing it with such a low frame rate, it's not for everyone, that's for sure. Personally, I'd like to see at least 55 FPS in the worst case scenario. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments to the settings. Let's select high graphics quality preset and lower ray tracing to high. Unfortunately, that is not quite enough to give us that 50 plus FPS experience. We're still at 40 plus, although this is not that bad. It is still kind of meh. I think the best course of action is to actually disable ray tracing when you are exploring the forest, and then have ray tracing enabled once you are in other locations. Because take a look at this. We can leave high graphics quality preset as is, disable ray tracing completely, and the FPS is still not crazy high. Although this is much better, in my opinion. 80 plus in this particular scene is very good. We could even try native resolution. Let's go back to DLAA. Yeah, this is fine. 60 FPS at native resolution. Basically, it is up to you. You have options. You can either experience this game at native resolution, without DLSS, without ray tracing, at 60 plus FPS pretty much in all scenes, or you could select DLSS Quality mode and alternate between turning on ray tracing when you are in less GPU demanding levels, and then turning it off once you are in the forest or any other GPU demanding scene. It is a bit of a hassle, but it should be fine. I mean, with these kind of games, with full ray tracing, even the 4090 and 5090 struggle to deliver a good experience without the help of DLSS. Alright, let's select DLSS Quality, High Graphics Quality preset, and Ray Tracing on High. This is the kind of settings I would use to enjoy this game fully. Take a look at this, 70 plus FPS indoors. Nice. And outdoors 80 plus, we have quite a good base FPS to start using frame generation now. With the introduction of multi-frame generation, we now have access to 3 modes: 2x, 3x, and 4x. 2x is 1 frame generated per every 1 real frame. 3x is 2 frames generated. 4x, 3 frames generated per every real frame. Let's start with 2x. By the way, ignore the low 1% lows. It is not correct. CapFrame application that I'm using to display all this information is not really friendly with frame generation. Yeah, frame rate is absolutely fine, so you can ignore that. I can tell you right away, the frame rate is smooth indeed, no stuttering. And take a look at this. This is a high refresh rate experience with ray tracing enabled, DLSS on quality, and 2x frame generation. If you're looking for a fluid experience on a high refresh rate monitor, then look no further. This is it. And in terms of image quality, it looks fine. I can't see any major visual imperfections that would make this game visually unpleasant. It works fine. However, the same cannot be said about 3x and 4x modes. Let's select the 3x mode. The FPS is now even higher. We are reaching 200. It is insanely fast for this kind of game. However, those visual imperfections that I was talking about, they get amplified with every additional frame generated. So, for example, where DLSS is failing a little bit to resolve the pixels around the character's hair, it is getting amplified with 3x frame generation mode. And some of you may find that annoying when you're walking around, panning the camera, and you have to look at that all the time. Yeah, it's not for everyone. With the 2x mode, it was manageable. With the 3x mode, it is already noticeable, I would say. And let's try 4x mode, shall we? The FPS is absolutely mental, 270. The image fluidity is crazy. However, as I was saying, the visual imperfections, they are amplified even more because we're using 4x, generating 3 frames per every real frame. And this mode is definitely not for everyone. Although the responsiveness of controls is still brilliant, it feels good. So it is worth checking out this feature. But would I recommend upgrading to the RTX 50 series just for the multi-frame generation? No. No, for sure. Because if you have RTX 40, you'll have access to the same model of frame generation. The only difference is that you will be able to use just 2x mode, not 4x or 3x on your RTX 40 series card. In my opinion, 2x mode is the best. That is the one that I'm using pretty much all of the time when I want a smoother image in something like Alan Wake 2. I find 4x as well as 3x modes a little bit pointless. It's definitely not for everyone. And even though I have the 360Hz monitor, yeah, after 120 FPS in a game like this, yeah, I'm not really feeling any benefits, to be honest with you. Even though I am sensitive to high frame rates, I can definitely tell the difference between 360 and 120. It's just that for this kind of game, it's not really an issue. If you have 120 FPS, then you'll have a very good time. I'd rather not have as many visual issues on the screen than higher FPS. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a great example of where PC gaming is headed in terms of video memory utilization in the next year or so. Yeah, take a look at this. We are at native 1440p resolution. Let me just bring up the settings. 1440p, the highest graphics quality preset. We're not even using ray tracing, we're not using DLSS or frame generation, and yet look at that VRAM usage. We're close to 12 gigabytes, 11.7 gigabytes of memory used. So it's a good thing that the 5070 Ti has 16 gigabytes of memory. Because if you want to experience the latest games with the highest texture quality, then you need more memory. 16 gigabytes is pretty much what I would consider to be a good place to be if you are playing at 1440p. 12 gigabytes, yeah, it will still be manageable, but to be sure that you get the best experience possible, you really need 16 gigabytes. Take a look at the performance though. We're at 120 plus FPS in one of the most demanding areas in the game, which means that we have a lot of headroom to actually enable ray tracing. Let's go straight for full RT. This is the absolute maximum. The experience is definitely not perfect, but we're still getting close to 40 FPS in one of the most demanding scenes in the game. And take a look at the VRAM usage. Yeah, ray tracing as well as frame generation requires extra VRAM to run, and we are currently utilizing 15 gigabytes of memory. But obviously, it is highly unlikely that you would want to play this game at 30 plus FPS, so we'll have to make some adjustments. Let's select DLSS Quality mode and see what happens. Will it be enough? It is actually pretty good. Take a look at this, 50 plus FPS in this scene right here. 53 was the lowest number I've seen. So basically, in the worst case scenarios, using full ray tracing, maxed out graphics, and with the help of DLSS Quality, you can enjoy this game maxed out completely in its full glory. Enjoy the visuals, yeah. It is possible. You just have to be okay with dropping to around 50 FPS in some scenes. However, not every level in the game is that demanding. Take a look at this. In the museum, we're getting 100 FPS, and the VRAM usage is down to 14 gigabytes right now. You can have a brilliant experience in this game with maxed out graphics, full ray tracing, if you are willing to, experience 50 FPS in worst case scenarios, and then 100 plus in the rest of the game. Of course, there will be something in the middle as well. You'll probably get 60 plus FPS in most scenes. Let's wrap it up by checking out Path of Exile 2. We are at native 1440p resolution using DLAA, and all the graphics settings are absolutely maxed out. Even at native resolution, the experience is quite pleasant. However, we do get dips to around 80-ish, which means that in worst case scenarios, the FPS will drop even further. So it's not perfect. In this game, you want as many frames as possible. That's why personally I prefer lowering the shadow and GI quality to high. It looks absolutely fine using this setting, and yet we get a lot more FPS out of it. Take a look at that. Out of combat, 200 FPS. Of course, we'll experience drops to around 140, but it is much better than 80 previously. 125 I've seen just then. And this is a pleasant experience already. The image is nice and smooth. It is highly likely that we'll stay above 60 FPS even in very demanding scenes in this game. But we can improve that even further by utilizing DLSS Quality mode. The image looks just as good as native to my eyes, looking at this screen, and getting that extra FPS is really important. Right now, we are actually hitting the wall in terms of CPU utilization. Yeah, it appears that we are getting a CPU bottleneck because the GPU is not fully loaded. Or it could be the game engine limitation. God knows that this game still requires optimization. It's not in the best state. Still, runs pretty well, enjoyable. As you can see, I can just walk through these maps, clearing the areas, extremely high frame rate. pleasant gameplay. If you wanted to upgrade your graphics card to enjoy Path of Exile, then the 5070 Ti is a pretty good choice, because it will give you that extra oomph, that extra performance that you want to enjoy this game properly. Yeah, what I would do is to avoid these kind of, massive fluctuations in frame rate, which makes the game appear not as smooth. I'd just lock the FPS at 120 and be done with it. Actually, let's do it now. Let's lock it at 120. Using this set of settings, the GPU as well as the CPU don't have to work as hard. As a result, our power consumption is quite low, 135 right now and 50 watts on the CPU. And you can see that frame rate graph is absolutely flat. But as soon as we enter combat, we actually are stressing the GPU more, so that power consumption goes up, right? But it's still pretty good. There are some dips here and there. However, generally, the FPS manages to stay above 120, which is what we are looking for. Overall, the RTX 5070 Ti delivers a pleasant experience at 1440p, which makes it a good pair for the QD OLED 1440p high refresh rate monitor. It can even deliver a good full ray tracing experience with the help of DLSS in the most graphically demanding games. And in other games, such as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you can enjoy well above 120 FPS if you want to. Let me know what you think about this combo. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to reward my work with a like. I really appreciate it. And subscribe for more if you haven't already. By the way, if you are interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can find them on Amazon at the links in the description below. It was I, Vadim. Until next time.